Hello, everybody. One sec. I need to turn on my controller because I was doing something like, okay, I got to do side quest, so I gotta wait for a video. Alright. Yeah. Unless Amber says I am too loud, or neighbors or dad if he's home, which he's not at the moment. I'll be talking in my normal voice, hopefully not too loud for them and whatnot. Because one time my dad heard me like 3 doors down and texted me. So, yeah, you know. But this is 16 video game bosses where you are.
All of you little demons, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, back again with another episode of the awesomely named and authorly hosted Choose Your Own Adventure, the weekly medieval-themed format where I, the crown Jules of WhatCulture.com, take a list chosen by you, yes, you, the person who knows their bike is not on the wall and is throwing out this shot. It's really bothering me. I can see the recording over here. It's bothering me, this negative space. So, we're going to turn this into positive space. James, if you would, please. That's just going to be there so that I don't freak out too much. Enjoy. Yes, you get to decide what list I dole out to you each and every week. And this week we have none other to thank than Lemming of Doom for their suggestion of boss battles where you are the final boss. Because this is the thing, as you may well know from watching What Culture over the many, many years that we've been around, we do love ourselves a good boss battle. However, even though most of them are tests of our skills learned up until that point or brand new experiences, there is sometimes a rogue element that developers love to throw in there, and that rogue element is you, because today we're going to be talking about times where you, yes, you, my friend.
I mean, if you realize, they do say that the worst enemy is yourself.
With a final boss. Number 8. Evolve.
Like
now, in
that.
all honesty, you could really have put any asymmetrical multiplayer title into the mix here because, yes, it's, well, you are the final boss that every other player is trying to kill, but I thought that we'd give a special shout-out to the rather dubious Evolve title today because that was really the first game to put that idea of one versus everyone onto the map, or into the mainstream at least. Here we find a team of players taking up the role of hunters, tasked with just one mission, and that is to bring down a gargantuan monster that is controlled by another player. Oh, and also to stay as a group, which for some reason is constantly ignored by at least one member of the team, usually leading to a party wipe later on. I'm not bitter, I swear I'm not. Seriously though. Charles, thanks for that every single time that we played. Thanks, mate. Now, while all of this infighting is going on, the other player, who is draped in their best Scooby-Doo robes, is off hunting the wildlife in order to evolve into an even more powerful being. Oh, I just got that. That's like the title. Ah, clever. Likely doing all of this while chuckling, "This isn't even my final form." And as such, it's a game where you create your own villain arc, moving from a relative weakling with a grudge to an all-powerful world-ending entity. And trust me, there is no purer pleasure than dropping onto the hunters with a fully beefed-up super squid, nailing them with special attacks, separating each member, and then devouring them whole. In their eyes, you are most definitely the final boss to their multiplayer experience, and to be honest, that is a role that many players were more than happy to step into. Number 7, Double Dragon Arcade. Now, you know the expression, you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends? Well, thanks to the Double Dragon Arcade experience, that is somewhat altered to...
I mean, you can choose your family. Sort. Basically, just because the family you were born into is blood, doesn't mean you have to talk to them, or have to accept them to interact with them, kind of thing. If they are mean, abusive, not good parent, and you want to move out and cut them out of your life, you have that choice to choose who your family is and your friends. Just because you're their family doesn't mean you have to talk to people like that. They give them no right to act like that. So really, you get to choose your family. Family isn't about blood, it's about love.
You can't choose your family, but you can definitely choose your frenemies, because that, oh boy, when it came to the end of that game, talk about a rug pull. While protagonist brothers Jimmy and Billy Lee, also known as Bimmy thanks to a hilariously brilliant mistranslation, have been as thick as thieves throughout the base game and have kicked evil in the face so many times that it's developed a foot fetish. But when it comes to the closing moments of the title, it turns out that the only defeat that Bimmy is interested in licking in is defeat of his brother's girlfriend Marion, as in a shocking turn of events, he challenges his brother to a fight to the death for her affections. Because that's what all women want, isn't it? For some absolute scrub to just step up and beat the piss out of his brother and win you like a trophy. It was a very different time. In these moments, blood being thicker than water is thrown out of the window, as now the only blood on show here is splattering against the floor as the two players square off against each other. That's right, it's you versus the person who you've been working with all this
Can't even see the blood. The floor's red, as it is.
time on the couch next to you. Suddenly the tension is ratcheted up to the extreme, with all camaraderie being replaced with ganradgery. It's a northern thing, don't worry about it. And you'll need to bait your supposed friend into whiffing attacks in order to land that killing blow and reign as either a brother forced to knock some sense into his sibling, or a dirtbag who literally tried to steal his brother's partner just because he felt like having a long live the king moment. Number 6, Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. Now when you load up the utterly balmy Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, you might well assume that the final boss involved in this game is either going to be the massive mountain in front of you or the absolutely heinous control schemers. Both are going to take a lot of effort to overcome. Side note, I hear that swearing loudly at both definitely helps. However, upon beginning your uphill climb, you'll soon start to realise something, likely aided by the voice of Mr. Foddy himself, that it's not actually the mountain that's the final hurdle, but your perceptions about perseverance and never giving up. Now, in a tangible sense, yes, the mountain is the object to climb, but you are the climber, and as such will experience setbacks, moments of frustration, and the ability to learn and recognise patterns in order to overcome them, making it a perfect visual metaphor for life itself. Now, sometimes we will be faced with situations so utterly overwhelming it will feel like we will never get over them, and sometimes, as with the controls, you're not often best equipped with the right tools to make the job any easier. However, it's through learning to work with your body, your mind, and your outlook that you will come to see that you have the ability to achieve any goal and cross any milestone if you just keep working at it and learning from your mistakes. You see, in this situation, you are the final boss here, but I want to clarify something. You are not a final boss to be defeated. There's nothing wrong with you that needs to be outwardly changed in the sense that you need to conquer yourself. Here, you actually get the most out of this game when you learn to work with what the game presents to you as mechanics, and also free yourself from anger and resentment to try and enjoy the experience. And then you'll realise that there really is no mountain that you can't overcome. Number 5, Metal Gear Solid. Right, okay, so every single time that I have to talk about a Metal Gear game, I start to perspire. I start to sweat more than Fat Man being told that no, sir, you can't have a stick of lard in your soda because A, it's not on the menu, and B, we are a solicitor's firm. And that's because with plots as complex and interweaving as those presented in this franchise, it's easy to get lost and make mistakes that diehards will call you out on. For example, even talking about Metal Gear Solid's final boss, Liquid Snake, is tough because while he is most definitely Solid Snake's evil twin and most definitely qualifies for this list, technically you're both evil twins, as you were both made through the cloning of Big Boss. Plus there's the insinuation that of the two, Solid Snake is the more evil of the pair, with Psycho Mantis even calling you true evil during your encounter. Plus, several of your allies also comment on how Solid Snake seems to enjoy war and killing. And to add even more insane petrol onto our burning brains, as you're a clone who has most definitely got a fair share of skeletons in the closet, that means that during the original Nayer's game, Metal Gear, when you take on Outer Heaven and reveal Big Boss to be its leader, it means that to him, you're the evil invader coming in and messing up his plans as you're the evil clone. Oh yeah, that's right, my brain is just leaking out of my ear. Fantastic, thanks for that. So yeah, the next time that you play as Solid Snake, just remember that you're playing as a pretty horrific and evil clone, and no amount of sick skateboarding tricks should ever make you forget that. Number 4, Mass Effect 3 The Citadel. So Mass Effect 3's The Citadel DLC may well be one of my most favourite video game expansions ever. Now, while some may see it as little more than paid fan service, to many it was a love letter to the series that actually felt better connected to the source than much of the vanilla experience. Here was a tightly crafted and personal story that doled out emotional beats and some delicious action that always felt complementary to the situation rather than being just placed in to pad out the runtime. Plus, it contains some deliriously cheesy moments that are just too good to hate, and by that I mean that it introduced you to the final boss of this experience, and that was you. And by that I mean a clone of you. Yes, that's right, this evil Commander Shepard was created by Cerberus as a backup, but who has now broken loose and is looking to steal your identity. As you might expect, this twists and turns through moments of betrayal and people questioning your intentions, and culminates in a boss battle with the clone who actually uses your chosen build to inform its attacks, which itself is just an absolute chef kiss of a touch to this experience. In fact, that's how I'd sum up the entire expansion as a whole, with a mighty put that on the box. Number 3, Waxworks 1992. Now, while most entries on this list focus on the idea of you either battling your clone or the person sitting next to you as making you become the final boss, when it comes to 1992's horror survival game Waxworks, well, they took that concept and they ran with it. Some would say into the very ground. Because Waxworks presents the player with a family under a rather nasty curse, and not the type of curse that makes you devilishly handsome and speak with dulcet tones in exchange for your hair follicles, but a curse that always affects your entire bloodline. Because here, every single time that one of the family would give birth to twins, one of them would always turn evil in order to serve Beelzebub. Ah, damn it, I meant to say Beelzebub, and now here he is. Just, alright mate, I haven't seen you in a while. To be honest, I'm pretty sick of this guy, but I do have a way of getting rid of him. Beefgates! Right, that's it, he's done. He's been poochied. Thanks, mate, by the way. I really appreciate that. No, Beelzebub's gone. Now, as you can imagine, this makes family reunions pretty bloody awkward indeed, yet this is exactly the task that is given to the player, to travel through time and eliminate these evil twins, thus breaking the curse. So far, so very weird, but it all culminates with you travelling back in time to the moment of your family's cursing and killing the witch before she can ruin so many generations and birthday parties. However, of course, there's a twist, because this is a horror game after all, and upon killing the witch, you then travel back to the present time, only to find out that in her dying moments, she actually cursed you, not the entire family, just you, to become a demon. And then you and your brother just leave the museum that you were in, and that's it. But you have become the evil twin now, and therefore you are most definitely the final boss. Number 2, F-Zero GX. Now here we come to the curious case of F-Zero GX, which if you're to listen to the hushed circles of gamers that crowd around, I don't know, like bin fires, under bridges sometimes, you'll hear them whisper of this game, of how absolutely amazing it is, how utterly ridiculous the speed is, how tight the controls are, and how lamentful it is that Nintendo seems to quash any idea of it ever coming back. That's probably why they hang around there, because they're worried that Big Ninty's just going to arrive there and just stamp them out of existence. But still, it is a fantastic game. But the reason why this is a curious entry on this list is because while F-Zero X introduced us to your typical clone gone rogue in the form of Bloodhawk, and that said shadowy racer was unlocked after beating every challenger that game had to offer on its highest difficulty, in GX there is no way this pretender to the throne could ever be counted as the game's final boss. Now I say that because the true final test of this game's story mode is a one-on-one race with one of the game's designers, as you must battle a staff ghost and race perfectly on a track without any walls whatsoever, meaning that you'll be sipping on a delicious cocktail of pain and humility for days to come. So yes, we have this weird situation now where if you were the game developer on F-Zero GX that put in that staff ghost race timer, then technically you are the final boss and play against yourself. So technically, I'm right, and it does qualify for this list. And if not, if you've got a problem with that, then just remember this: Evil Finger Temple of Doom. I can do what I like as long as I'm doing this. And number 1, Darkseid 2. Oh, Darkseid 2, you are so incredibly weird, but I love you so much. Seemingly acting like the love child of H.R. Geiger and Mortal Kombat's live-action capture technology, Darkseid 1 and 2 are a trip into insanity that will make you question many things. For you see, while it first appears that luckless loser Mike Dawson is once again on a quest to stop a parallel dimension from invading his own, things take a turn for the Twin Peaks in the final moments of this sequel. Here, Mike has somehow defeated a giant monster using only his wits and his, why yes I do have my porn collection alphabetized stash, and is now chatting with his pal Jack, who so desperately wants to be the Fonz that it's likely that he's got a tattoo of Henry Winkler's face on his tongue. That's good, Fonzie. Jack reveals, in a rather well-laid twist I have to admit, that you and he are actually the same person, and that he's actually the Mike Dawson from the parallel universe, only clearly cooler and with the ability to turn into a bloody demon. Now, as you might expect, turning into a bloody demon versus Mike's ability to wear sports coats doesn't work out well for this Mike. Or this Mike that I just hit. And so now lays dead on the floor. Having stolen our identity, Jack now rides off into the gloom set of the other world. You can't call that a sunset, I'll tell you that for much. Clearly preferring to go home over live in our reality. Which is all well and good until you start to question, wait a minute, what? What was the point of trying to merge the realities if you're just going to go back and live in yours? What's the point? What's the point of this game? Number 8, Dragon's Dogma. Now I ask you, when you picked up a copy of the video game Dragon's Dogma and saw that there was a massive dragon on the front and that the game opens with a dragon stealing your heart while also basically screaming in your face, I am the bad guy, who did you think that you'd finish this title battling with? Well, if you answered the dragon, then you, my friend, are an idiot, because of course the answer really is you, but only kind of, and only a New Game Plus. It's weird, but also cool. However, such is the situation you find yourself in should you roll through the mightily impressive Will You Shut Up About Harpies for 2 Seconds simulator known as Dragon's Dogma. As once you reach the final confrontation with a being that monitors life on Earth itself, you'll experience a set of trials. And in order to overcome these trials, you're going to have to do battle with yourself. Quite literally, because this being uses the previous character model you made on the original run of the game as a host to fight you with. So yeah, in this instance, you are the final boss, if only for a little bit. Yet this moment is still an incredibly powerful and wonderful use of the New Game Plus feature. Number 7, Infamous. Now, sometimes it's not until the final moments of their tenure as a video game villain that certain bad guys within video games will be transcended into the realms of being goddamn 2 thumbs up great. And that was very much the case with Kessler from Infamous, who, up until his final confrontation with Cole, seemed to be just another man hell-bent on destruction. Yet after having his ass summarily handed to him by the player, Kessler uses his last ounce of strength to reveal the truth, that he and Cole are the same person, and that this was all but a test in order to make sure that Cole was ready for the Beast, an even greater evil who would show up, and some would say thoroughly disappoint, in the sequels. In Kessler's time, he chose to run from the Beast instead of fighting, and as a result, lost his family when his enemy became too powerful. Thus, he decided to follow the age-old adage of don't pout, time travel it out, and skipped back in time to orchestrate the events of the Beast and Cole's arrival, while at the same time killing Cole's partner so that he could focus on his superhero studies. Cock-blocking yourself, that has to be a new one. Thus, he created the environment for Cole to arrive, take his place, and be ready to tackle the Beast, becoming a villain with a tragic backstory and a horrific interpretation of how to fix the future. Number 6, Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow. Now, while you might have thought to yourself that Dragon's Dogma used the New Game Plus feature pretty well to establish you as being the final boss of that run, the Castlevania series, or Dawn of Sorrow in particular, takes a look over at the notes and just says, pathetic, mate. Absolutely pathetic. Because you know what? I've got a brand new campaign that ends with you fighting yourself, and you can only access it if you get the bad ending the first time around. That's Castlevania, baby. In Dawn of Sorrow, you take up the mantle, at first, of one Soma Cruz, who was tasked with eliminating Dracula and breaking a prophecy that lists you as the next person to inherit his powers. And should you complete the game with the bad ending, you'll unfortunately have acted as your own Deliveroo driver of destiny and plonked yourself right in harm's way to become the next Fanged Lord. I'm in danger! I am danger! However, the game doesn't actually end there, as if you go through New Game Plus, you'll now play as Julius Belmont and are tasked with hunting down Soma, meaning that come the end of this playthrough, you'll have to effectively kill yourself. It's an ingenious twist for sure, and one that adds in a huge amount of replay value, as well as a monstrous amount of fun for the player. Number 5, LEGO Star Wars the video game. Now, while LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga has been making the rounds for being a decidedly upscale and loving retelling of prior LEGO Star Wars video games, there was one element that was left out of this reimagining that fans lamented louder than Chewbacca standing on a nail. And that was, let me just check my notes here, oh yes, the ability to kick the piss out of the person sitting next to you on the couch. At the end of the highly enjoyable and altogether laugh riot that was LEGO Star Wars the video game, players would work with and then work very much against Anakin Skywalker as he and Obi-Wan shared that epic battle on Mustafar. In the movies, we got the much-memed high ground moment, but if you were playing the game with a co-op partner, this turned into an out-and-out boss battle against one another that would tear the ground right out from under you. Suddenly, friends were turned to foes, and it was down to whoever could manipulate the often wonky combat mechanics to their whim faster in their quest for glory. It was a rather sudden moment as well, because the game gave no prior warning that suddenly you two would be doing battle. I know that obviously if you watch the movies, you know how things are going to end, but here, sitting there with like your younger brother or sibling and just being like, oh, I guess it's time to smash in your skull with a pumice stone. Sorry about that. But weirder than that still was just how quickly your sibling brother or whoever you're sharing the couch with was so eager to turn on you. It was just like, oh, guess what? Oh, you're attacking me. Oh, you're attacking me. All right, fine then. Bets are off, mate. Number 4, BioShock Infinite. Oh, BioShock Infinite. You are a thoroughly mediocre entry into the franchise. Oh yes, that's right, I said it. For all its pomp and heady ideas of alternate dimensions and infinite possibilities, this sure did feel like a very prescribed and unnecessary convoluted tale at times, begging the question of whether the plot was really that deep at all, or whether the narrative in question had only embedded itself deeply up its own arse. Plus, for some, the final boss of the game may well have been Lady Comstock for all of those times that she decided to show up with her ridiculous bullet sponge and reanimating abilities. That sure was fun. It was definitely the final boss for me when I was going through on 1999 mode for a while, when I just put down the controller and just said, Jordan Peele, can you line up this for me? Nope. Still, I guess when times were good, they were very good. And with Comstock at the helm of Columbia, you had a clear and well-shaped racist villain who was in need of a dirt nap. Yet upon giving him a rather brutal sip from the drinking fountain, you found yourself in a bit of a pickle. Namely because you are Comstock, and as such have the potential to become an infinite amount of villains. Thus, we barrel into the final moments of the game, whereupon realizing that this evil potential is inherent in all bookers. So therefore, every version of you needs to be killed. It's a rather bizarre moment, as even though the emotional impact of watching Elizabeth drown the player is very high, the ridiculous factor is even higher when you realise that Elizabeth now has to kill all bookers for all time, forever. God, seriously, I've worked in service industry jobs that seem more rewarding than that task. Number 3, The Suffering. When discussing the all-time great horror video games, I often feel like the jagged masterpiece that is The Suffering often gets left out of discussion, and that is very unfair because it is a great game. Playing like Max Payne filtered through the lens of Silent Hill, this horror action title made waves upon its release thanks to its imaginative enemy design and creepy setting, yet failed to churn out a long-standing franchise, with the sequel Ties That Bind being our last entry into this gritty and grim reality. And seeing as Torque's unnatural ability to use his own rage and pain as a weapon, and that many enemies in the game revolve around regret, pain, and of course a whole dose of suffering, it made perfect sense that our anti-hero would also have a major hand in shaping the game's final boss, which turned out to be a giant manifestation of his hatred. Taking on 3 separate forms, Torque's hatred first attacks him as his creature form, then tries to get the drop on him via his human form wielding a Tommy gun, but it's his final form which is the most grotesque, as here we see a monstrous figure with a smaller Torque trapped in a kind of umbilical cord that is hanging off the beast, the subtext clearly being that Torque has given birth to this monster through his rage and anger. And what follows is, on paper at least, a beautiful message of overcoming and dealing with your emotions to become a better person. But in practice, it involves a lot of shooting, running around, gore, and then using a Deus Ex Machina machine that just empowers you with magic gubbins to throw magic at its one weak point. Yeah, it might have got a bit lost in translation there. Number 2, Doom Eternal: The Ancient Gods DLC. Well, this was a bit of a shock, wasn't it? After ripping and tearing through the forces of hell like a chainsaw to a particularly jam-filled cake, things were looking up for the Doomslayer. And by that I mean that Earth was completely to the galaxy in threat of having Hellspawn be endlessly unleashed, and the forces of heaven weren't exactly being much help either. In fact, it couldn't have gotten much worse, except then it did with the arrival of Davoth. Now Davoth, or the Dark Lord of Hell, was mainly an off-screen villain up until the Ancient Gods DLC, pulling the strings behind the scenes in order to make your life, well, a living hell. That all changed when Doomguy decided to reawaken Davoth with the hopes of killing him once more, the idea being that his death would then shatter his hold over the universe and pull all the forces of hell from our reality and contain them within theirs. Basically, it was another excuse for a hellacious boss fight, although I don't think that many players expected that fight to be against, well, you. Although when you think about it, Davoth being Hell's version of the Doomslayer kind of makes sense, as after all, this mountain of muscle and anger issues is clearly humanity's most powerful hero, so why wouldn't that be true of Hell? What follows, outside of a cheeky shot from Doomguy to try and end the fight early, is a showdown with yourself where you end up finally striking down Davoth after effectively giving him a middle finger, followed by a blade to the chest. And your reward after all of that hard work? Well, it's a 1,000-year nap after being completely depowered. Yay! And number 1, Phantasmagoria, a puzzle of flesh. With a name as cheery as a puzzle of flesh, which definitely sounds like the worst version of a Rubik's Cube money can buy, you're probably not entering into this sequel to the cult classic Phantasmagoria series with the expectations of a light-hearted family-friendly adventure. And you'd be right, because this is utterly grim in places. Here you play as mild-mannered Curtis Craig, a man who is just trying to hold down a 9-to-5 while also trying to hold his mind together, as frequent and horrific hallucinations keep trying to ruin his life. What follows is a twisted tale of teleportation, children being pushed through portals on Bring Your Kid to Work Day, and of course the age-old classic horror trope of people being sacrificed to an alternate dimension in exchange for chemicals in order to build a super addictive weight loss drug. I'm sorry, what the hell is going on here? That last plot point is so utterly mad, it makes me question whether this was the only drug that is floating through the veins of Phantasmagoria. In all honesty, that plot point is so utterly off the rails that it makes the revelation that you're actually a Curtis clone that was sent back from the alternate dimension when the original was pushed into the portal as a child that much less spicy. At least the final showdown with the real Curtis more than makes up for it, with you desperately trying to outwit a man who not only knows all your own moves, but can also predict the ones you're going to make.
Let's just end right there. Wow. They have a battleship too, so I'll probably be getting that on the list. But, well, I'll see you guys in the next video, and, hope you guys enjoy.